It's about that time again, the seasonal map tier list for Delta Force. Now that we've had the new season in our hands for a couple of weeks now, it's time for me to rank all the maps. So we're going to go in alphabetical order here, starting with Ascension. Now, I think it's no secret to anyone that I'm really not a fan of Ascension. If I can, I'll usually leave when I get put into Ascension. AD's a little bit better for this map. King of the Hill is just a drab. There's like no hard cover for the most part. Most of it can be destroyed. Vehicles are just running rampant. And yeah, playing on this map, it feels like a chore more than anything else. The colors are drab. It's not very nice to look at. And you can definitely tell potentially that this is one of their oldest maps. Well, it is one of their oldest maps, and it's really starting to show us cracks. They haven't done anything to improve it, and unfortunately for that reason, I really have to put it in F tier. I really don't enjoy playing on Ascension. It just, yeah, it feels very much like a chore. It's slightly better since they added the jets to it, so at least those can take care of helicopters that are a really big annoyance, but still, I don't think it's enough to move it up a tier. Moving on to Cracked. Now, Cracked is actually a map that I enjoy more than a lot of the other maps. It has some really good infantry fighting opportunities in here where vehicles can't really mess with you except potentially the helicopter, and the helicopter is one of the reasons why this map in certain games just feels so painfully frustrating to play on, because sometimes you'll have that one player that just hogs the AA all game and stays in the uncap, so the choppers just won't go on that side of the map, and then they'll just completely rain terror upon all of the flags that are on their side of the map, completely foregoing, like if you're playing on the alpha side in the uncaps, they just won't go on alpha 1, alpha 2. They'll focus on everything else, and including delta, and then it just makes pushing out of those gimme flags very frustrating. And I think they need to do something to encourage vehicle players to go out and do something, because yeah, I can't even count how many times I have vehicle players when I'm on that team just camping on that hill and absolutely not participating in any way, shape, or form to any type of vehicle control on the map, or air control either. So for that reason, even though I really like Cracked, sometimes it can be very frustrating, so I'll put it on B tier. Cyclone is one of the newer maps, so obviously last season we got Cyclone. You get some dynamic weather on here, which is cool. The map looks beautiful. Sometimes I like playing on it when I haven't gotten it for a while, but if I keep getting it over and over, and I think this can be said for all of the maps in Delta Force, when you keep getting the same map over and over because there's really there's no system in place to check which map you just played, it can get a little bit tedious. I really like the pathing between like Bravo, Charlie, Echo, and Delta. Foxtrot and Alpha, I pretty much never play there for the most part. And then Golf, I absolutely never go to Golf. I don't really use the attack boats all that much, so I let people that want to use the attack boats fight for Golf. But I really like the whole synergy between Delta, Echo, Bravo, and Charlie, where you can use the zip lines to go back up, attack the point, then parachute back down, go underneath. So overall, I really like that sector of the map, and vehicles aren't too big of a nuisance, especially if you're sticking to like Bravo, Charlie. The boats potentially, but you know, you're not going to have actual like tanks and tank destroyers go down there. So there's a lot of good opportunities for infantry combat. So for that reason, you know what? Would I rather play Cyclone than Cracked? I think I kind of like playing both of them at the same level. You know what? I'll put Cyclone on B. I think it's a beautiful map to look at. It does have its issues. That's kind of holding it back. They did add the jets, so that helps with the choppers. Albeit, if I'm focusing on Bravo and Charlie, it's not really an issue because I'm not getting harassed by helicopters. So you know what? I think I'm gonna put Cyclone on A tier. It feels a lot less frustrating when you're playing on Cyclone and you're just like, okay, vehicles are just running rampant outside. I'm just going to stick to the inside, and then potentially go and help out on Echo Delta. So yeah, I think that's a good place. Moving on to Fault. So the newest map in Delta Force, it's in a desert. It is absolutely gigantic, and that is one of the reasons I think Fault is being held back in terms of the ranking here, just because it's so massive. One thing I do like about it though is the fights on all the different flags feel very isolated. Like you're not getting harassed from everywhere on the map like you are on Ascension. They're very localized, so if you're fighting on a specific flag, you're not going to get pushed back from 2 flags over because a tank's shooting at you from God knows where. So I think it has that going for it. The only reason like I can't put it too high on the list is it's so massive that there's, generally speaking, you're not going to run into a whole lot of action. I think the most kills I've gotten on this map is like 19, which is not much. So I think it's really indicative of how slow the map moves just because of how much playable area there is on it. On attack and defend, from my experience, very defender heavy or very defender like favored. And I haven't seen anybody actually win as attackers on Fault. So maybe a little bit of balancing to do there. But overall, just because of the fact that you're not getting a whole lot of action, even if you take vehicles like and you're driving around the map, it's very difficult to find people a lot of the times just because of how spread out people are. I like the layout. I like how all the combat zones, all the flags are like isolated from each other. So you're really fighting on a specific point. A little bit less in the city, but you know, the city is understandable. You know what? I think I'll put it on C tier. I think there definitely needs to be work. I think it's a little bit too large for the player count, even if you are using vehicles to traverse the map. Knife Edge. Okay, so Knife Edge, at first when it came out, I was like, dude, this map is so confusing. I hate it. There's just like paths everywhere that lead to seemingly nowhere. The more I play it, the more I enjoy Knife Edge. Now that there are still a lot of angles that you have to look out for, especially if you're playing on the outside, like on the metal not the scaffolding, but the metal platforms on the side of the dam. There's a lot of angles that you can look for, but just the pathing on this map and how many flanking opportunities you can get is just so fun. The one thing that I hate is the audio on this map because players are like 2 stories above. They sound like they're on the same floor as you. It's super weird. But that's more so in like an audio issue. And I think Knife Edge is a fantastic map. There's so many pathing opportunities. On AD, I don't like Knife Edge at all. Too many choke points, too many players in such a small concentrated area. But then again, I don't really like AD as a game mode overall. If they tone down the amount of players, I think it would be a lot more enjoyable. But Knife Edge, I think, is a super solid map. I kind of want to put it into S tier because of how much I like playing it, but there are some issues here and there that I think are keeping it from that top tier, most notably the audio issues, but then again, those are audio issues and they're not really tied into the map. So I think you know what, I think I'll still put it on S tier. If they fix those audio issues, like Knife Edge is just absolutely a blast to play. At least for me, I have so much fun in there. Just with the amount of flanks you can get, it's so fun. Moving on to Shafted, so the other infantry focused map. I used to like Shafted a lot more. There's a few little problem areas I have, especially on between B and Charlie. There's always a standstill there. If they added a few more lanes, I think it would be a lot more enjoyable. Potentially even scale back the players, make it maybe 24v24 to really reduce the amount of times that both teams are just at a standstill on Bravo Charlie, and also remove the construction system from the map, or at least remove it from certain areas that are just blocking off lanes, and the map already has very few lanes. So if you're using the construction system to put more, not a good idea. I still like Shafted, but you do get those like one-off games that are just a pain to play when teams just locked into their uncap. If they fix some of the issues here and there, it would be a lot better. But I still think I'd put it on A, just because I like infantry gameplay so much, and that you're not being constantly, obviously, harassed by vehicles on Shafted gives it a little bit of an edge, at least in my tier list. For Threshold, I think Threshold is probably one of the more balanced maps in the games. The one thing that's holding it back is the dam in the middle, or the retention wall, whatever you want to call it, on Charlie. If both teams capped up until that point and then it's just a standstill, no choppers are going on either side, it becomes very boring very quickly. And they also removed some anti-air weaponry from either side. So on Echo 2, on Echo 2 and Alpha 2, they removed the anti-air weaponry on the top of the roofs, which I don't understand. Helicopters have a lot of maneuvering that they can do on this map because there's a lot of ways for them to break LOS with those anti-air weaponries, so I don't really know why they removed them. I have a lot of fun playing on Threshold, but yeah, you get those matches here and there that are just awful, but the same could probably be said for all the maps. And yeah, that choke point on Bravo or Charlie is really holding it back, but a lot of good flanking opportunities on this map if you know where to go. I think I'd put Threshold on B tier. It's a solid map. They just need to fix that Charlie choke point. Trainwreck, there's just too many vehicles on Trainwreck, honestly. It is such a nightmare to play on sometimes if, like, everybody wants to play, like, a fun class or they want to play, like, the preferred class and they're not taking care of vehicles. It can just devolve into every time you spawn, you're getting murdered by a vehicle, and there are aplenty. Choppers are just, you know, flying around unchecked. I'm becoming less and less of a fan of Trainwreck, just because, yeah, the vehicles are just such a nuisance on this map, and it feels very unbalanced for vehicle versus infantry gameplay. Obviously, I like playing infantry the most. I'll use vehicles if potentially nobody else is using vehicles to keep the enemy vehicles in check, but I think Trainwreck needs a little bit of work. I've had some fun games on here, but oftentimes it's very one-sided and it feels super frustrating to play on. I think I would potentially put Trainwreck on C tier alongside Fault. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment, at least for my personal preference. And then the final map that we have on the list is Trench Lines. So Trench Lines suffers from the same issue as Trainwreck. There's too many vehicles in the map. It doesn't need to have that many vehicles, in my opinion, where potentially half of the team can be in armored vehicles while the other half is doing God knows what, but they sure as hell aren't taking care of vehicles or playing as engineers. So again, it can lead to some very frustrating gameplay. Helicopters, you know, they can fly behind the mountains next to Bravo, Delta, and Echo. They can, you know, reach the limit of the actual flyable area so that nobody can lock onto them. The AA can't do anything about them. They can just rain down terror on anything that's on the ground. The hill next to the trenches doesn't make much sense to me because vehicles can just sit up there and just free fire down into the trenches, absolutely murdering anybody. I think it would have made more sense like the other side around, where the trenches are on the top of the hill, and the valley is lower where the vehicles would fight. I think it would be a little bit better. But Trench Lines overall, again, I have the fun games here and there where I'll enjoy it, but if I get put into it a lot, which does happen pretty frequently, where I get Trench Lines like 3-4 times in a row, it starts to get pretty aggravating and frustrating. And they did fix a little bit of the issues with the playable area, especially on the Foxtrot side. But where would I want to put it on the tier list? I think I would potentially want to put it on the same tier as Trainwreck, on D tier, and then it would be none in Delta, and yeah, C tier, none in D tier, and then Ascension in F tier. Is there a map that I could potentially bump down that I'd like to play less? No, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I think Knife Edge is my favorite map right now. Cyclone, yeah, I enjoy playing Cyclone, but if we were to put them like in order, I'd prefer playing Shafted over Cyclone. I'm an infantry-focused player, as most people know. And then, yeah, Cyclone, Cracked, pretty fair. Threshold as well. Fault, Trainwreck, Trench Lines, and then Ascension that I just don't like playing at all. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Obviously, this is a very subjective tier list for all the maps. I pretty much only play King of the Hill. I've played Attack and Defend on all these maps a handful of times, but I can't really give my opinion on that. But I don't think they've made much changes to Attack and Defend on either of these maps, so my stance would probably be very similar if I were to mix that in. But yeah, there you go. There's my tier list for the Season 6 of Delta Force, at least for the maps. Let me know your tier list in the comment section down below. Which map is your favorite? Which map is the one that you hate the most, that you want to just leave as soon as you get put in there, and potentially why? But yeah, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.